I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb from the 11 Alive Weather Impact Team. We're breaking away from our coverage from our sister station in Tampa for just a brief moment, just so that we can give you some local updates here about what's happening not only with Milton, as you just heard. Official landfall was at 8:30 this evening at Siesta Key, which is just to the south of Sarasota. We're going to watch now what happens with this storm now that landfall has happened as it moves across Florida and out into the Atlantic, and talk about the potential impacts that we'll see along the Georgia coast as well. And they are already feeling some of those impacts, mainly with some light rain coming in right now, but they will see the winds whipping up, the potential for some storm surge. We're going to break that all down for you coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's get a closer look at this storm as it did just make landfall about 30 minutes ago, just south of Tampa and south of Sarasota, and the official landfall location is at Siesta Key. Here is the center of that circulation, and really, even though we're concentrating on the official landfall, the entire Florida peninsula has been feeling the impacts of this system all day. We had more than 50 tornado warnings in Central and South Florida earlier in some of those bands that were causing rotation, and numerous confirmed tornadoes, some of these large tornadoes in Florida a little bit earlier. But now we're watching the center of circulation right here. That is the eye of the storm as it was moving now from over the Gulf of Mexico, now into land there on the Florida peninsula. And it's moving still at a pretty good clip there at about east-northeast at about 15 miles an hour. We have some strong rain bands on the north side of the system. Tampa is getting some really heavy rain out there right now. Not as much rain on the south side at this point, but the winds there are still strong, and that's causing some big storm surge there from Tampa southward as well. Maybe a little bit of drier air is trying to wrap around up into this system. And then you see these other bands that were moving across Florida earlier, now out into the Atlantic Ocean. And on the north side, we have some lighter rain. Some of that is coming into the Georgia coastline as well. So there is that center of circulation. If you can see, here's Tampa. All right, there's Tampa Bay, St. Pete here too. There's Sarasota. The official landfall was just south of Sarasota at Siesta Key. Then you have Venice. Then you have Port Charlotte down here. There's Fort Myers. So that's the location of where that center of circulation moved in, again, just about 30 minutes ago. And there's a closer look at that. We'll put some of the cities up here. And you can see Port Charlotte. Down to the south, there's Boca Grande. But where we had the landfall was just south of Sarasota, there at Siesta Key, Florida, as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds at about 20 miles an hour. We'll widen out. You can see the entire system because, of course, as you know, these hurricanes impact more areas than just where that center of circulation comes through. And especially, I want you to look up to the north as you see that rain up into northern Florida, some of that into the southern parts of Georgia, too, where we have mainly light rain here, north of Jacksonville, up toward Brunswick, St. Simons, Savannah. You're not getting any of that rain there yet, but we are seeing some of those lighter showers in parts of southeast Georgia right now. Here's another look. This is our infrared satellite imagery. And again, you can see the convection all along with this system coming in there. The eye is not as visible on this satellite imagery for right now. But again, a lot of action moving in over Florida. Now, with hurricanes, we often see storm surge in association with that. We often see the storms weaken as they move in over land. This is going to experience some weakening over the next couple of hours since it is over land, but still maintaining hurricane strength. You can see it still at 2 o'clock in the morning as a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds at about 90 miles an hour, going back out over the Atlantic, becoming a tropical storm, then a depression and remnant low as it moves well out into the Atlantic Ocean. But as it's moving away, you'll notice there that this system does not make a direct landfall on Georgia, but you don't have to have a direct landfall on our state to feel some of the impacts. And we are seeing there in the Georgia coastline a tropical storm warning that is in effect. And I'll explain that for you coming up in just a little bit. I want to show you the wind history with this. Now, we've been watching the storm since way into last week. Then it became a tropical depression. On Friday into Saturday, it was a tropical storm. Sunday, it became a hurricane and then went from a Category 1 hurricane early Monday morning warning to a Cat 5. That was rapid intensification. We had winds that got up to 180 miles an hour in the Gulf of Mexico on Monday with Milton. Then we had that eye wall replacement cycle, and it went back down to a Cat 4 for a little while on Tuesday, then back up to a Cat 5, holding at Cat 5 for a while, and then as it was nearing land, it weakened a little bit, encountered a little bit of shear, and now has made it inland as a Category 3. That is still classified, though, as a major hurricane moving in. We still have the hurricane warnings in effect for much of central Florida, both on the western coast and the eastern coast. Again, it's coming this way, not this way, but the eastern coast is still in that hurricane warning because they will have hurricane-force winds there as the system moves back out into the Atlantic. Notice the blue, though, up along the Georgia coastline. That is where we have the tropical storm warnings that are in effect from the Georgia-Florida line up to Savannah and even beyond Savannah up to the South Carolina line, where on the north end of this storm, the flow around that is bringing in some of those tropical storm force winds. And it's not only that, because those winds are coming into this direction. So remember, the storm's way down here. It's that counterclockwise flow like this that is bringing in this water along the coast. So we're even seeing some storm surge there, possible 1 to 3 feet in some spots. There may even be some areas down on the southern end there, more close to St. Mary's and Brunswick, where we can see maybe some storm surge a little bit more than 3 feet. So that's something that we'll watch very closely. And this is the whole setup of what we're watching with the hurricane. And there's that counterclockwise flow that I'm talking about around that center of circulation, around that area of low pressure. There you see it as it was moving inland here. The greatest surge is near landfall and just south of that. So we've got a lot of convection on the north side and a lot of very heavy rain there. But the storm surge is going to be worse, really, from landfall near Sarasota and Siesta Key down to the south toward Fort Myers, with that flow coming in here, bringing in a lot of that water along the coastline. Now watch that same scenario as this moves across the Florida Peninsula and goes back out over land. And remember, counterclockwise flow, what is it doing? It's picking up all this water in the Atlantic, and that is slamming that water in along the Georgia coast, where we expect some of those storm surges to be there as well. So this is what we're going to be watching. Storm surge with the center of circulation with Milton is higher on those areas of the western coast of Florida. The purple that you see there from Tampa, really the southern end of Tampa Bay, through Sarasota, Siesta Key, down toward Port Charlotte there, that kind of purple color is where we have the potential of seeing storm surge at 12 feet or higher. Now, Tampa may have escaped this pretty well. Now, they're still going to have some issues there in Tampa, but it would have been a worst case scenario if this storm had come in this way and all of that water was funneled into Tampa Bay and we had those really high storm surges there in Tampa Bay and along the coastline there at Tampa. But since the center was down here, they've almost had a reverse storm surge because the wind is now coming this way. So instead of it all coming here, that storm surge is more here, and the wind is coming back this way from land. So they, in fact, almost had a reverse storm surge with the water actually lowering a little bit with the wind coming in that direction. So it's just really interesting to see the difference really in just a few miles of where their center of circulation is on those highest impacts for the storm surge. And that, again, is mainly south of that center of circulation. Now, look at the east coast of Florida. The system is going to be moving out, but still that wraparound moisture could bring in some storm surge there. The yellow color showing up to 6 feet. I don't think it'll be quite to 6. But then if you go up to the Georgia coast, you'll see here as well that yellow goes up just to the north there of Brunswick. With the yellow color, and then north of that up towards Savannah, and then just past Charleston is the blue color, indicating storm surge up to 3 feet. So really meaning less than 3 foot storm surge there for the northern parts of the Georgia coast and up to just north of Charleston, South Carolina. So those are the main impacts we are watching there on the Georgia coast. We also have to watch the wind as well. Here's how this looks, where this is a really broad area of tropical storm force winds. That's the yellow color that you see there. The yellow is mainly winds of 39 to 56 miles an hour. As you get closer to that center of circulation where you see the orange color, that's where we have winds of 57 to 73 miles an hour. And then the red color shows the winds that are at hurricane strength at 74 miles an hour or greater. So that is kind of a smaller area right there. So watch as this moves across the peninsula. You'll see the red color start to diminish a little bit as it moves away and it loses the hurricane strength. But notice here, this is at 11 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. On this north end here, we still have the tropical storm force winds moving through there, the Georgia coast and up to the South Carolina coast. And again, that's what's enhancing that storm surge with those winds that are going to be above 39 miles an hour and even some higher gusts there as well. The good news about this system is it is moving pretty quickly. So as it keeps moving out to the Atlantic, it's going to lose its strength. This is by 9 o'clock in the evening here on Thursday. Tropical storm force winds are gone. They've moved out of Florida, they've moved out of Georgia, they've moved out of South Carolina, and that'll continue pushing on out into the Atlantic, and things will be improving. Not only is the rain going to be ending, the wind's going to start dying down, and we'll see much calmer weather moving in. But that's when the folks in Florida are going to be spending their time assessing the damage, especially after sunrise here tomorrow morning for that system as it continues to move on away out of our area. So here's what we're watching. Here's another look at the storm surge. This is kind of the most likely scenarios, and we've actually seen these numbers coming down for Tampa Bay. We see a little bit of yellow and blue and orange in some of these spots here in the Tampa Bay area, but we're not seeing any red, which is indicating greater than 9-foot storm surge. Where we start to get into more of that is, again, south of Sarasota. Again, that landfall here is right around Siesta Key, then toward Venice, getting toward Boca Grande and Port Charlotte. That's where we have some of those higher storm surge totals most likely here, with the yellows and blues and oranges here. And that goes down toward Bonita Springs as well. And then up to the Georgia coast, mainly the blues here, a couple little blips of the yellow indicating that storm surge maybe 1 foot to 3 feet on average here along the Georgia coast. And then, of course, extending up toward the Charleston area as well. And there's a closer look there from Brunswick, St. Mary's. That's when you see a little bit of that yellow. Also up towards Savannah, seeing a little bit of that yellow there too. So here's the forecast track. Now that the storm has moved inland, what is next? It's going to cross Florida, and we still have all those rain bands here with it as it moves across the Florida peninsula. This is at 2 o'clock in the morning, still inland, still is a Category 1 hurricane just south of Orlando. We're thinking around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning there, but still maximum winds could be around 90 miles an hour still at that time over land. Then it moves back out over the water, and you know, a lot of times we see re-strengthening over when it goes back out over water, but we just don't think the structure is going to be there for that re-strengthening to happen when it moves back out over the Atlantic. So it'll move away. This is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. After a major hurricane moves in, and it's going to be a really rainy, wet, windy night in Florida, and you know, the Georgia coast will have some rain too. But by lunchtime tomorrow, most of this is going to be out of Florida. Maybe just a couple lingering showers there on the backside. The Georgia coast will be finished with the rain, we're thinking, by Thursday, and then everything continues to move away. And then we're just reinforcing our nice dry weather that we're going to have here with those temperatures that continue to trend a little bit below the average here as well. So I want to take you back and show you radar before we wrap up here in just a moment, so you can see what we're watching with a radar and that center of circulation now continuing to move through those areas of Florida, where we have the official landfall that happened around 8:30. There again is that center of circulation. And as you can see, if you've been keeping an eye on this really throughout the evening hours tonight, we've been watching that eye move quickly through the Gulf. Now it's over land. Still a lot of heavy rain, good convection up around Tampa. Not as much rain at Fort Myers, but the wind there is still strong, and that storm surge is pretty impressive there as well. Losing a little bit of strength as it pushes over land, but still maintaining hurricane strength crossing the peninsula, and then it will move on out. Our weather Looking good. We're not going to have any impacts here. Good bit of sunshine, cool air, cool mornings this week, and then an even colder air coming in here Tuesday and Wednesday with highs back into the 60s. We're going to take you back now to our coverage from our sister station in Tampa, WTSP. Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins will be giving you more updates as well as the team there. And be sure to scan the code to download the 11 Alive app. Also watch for free on 11 Alive Plus.